Hey buddies, my name is Sibusiso, but I'm also known as Coach Sbu. Welcome into the Mathsbuddies tutorials. In today's video, we're going to be having a look at functions. I'm going to be sharing some methods on how you can solve this particular question, and also you're going to be learning some of the things that you might actually apply on other questions, right? Now, this is basically to help you prepare for the upcoming trials, so please be sure that you watch up until the very end. And if you like the video and if you feel like the video found it very valuable, please be sure that you also share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss when another video gets uploaded. So without wasting any further time, let's jump straight into today's video. Right here, we are given the instructions, so I'm going to go ahead and read the instructions. Then from there, I'm going to be giving you steps on how you can basically interpret questions. So the instructions, they read as follows. In the diagram below, the graphs of f of x is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c and g of x equals to mx plus d are sketched. The graphs intersect at a and b. b 4:0 and c -1:0 are the x-intercepts, and a, which is 0:16, the y-intercepts of f and g. P and Q are 2 points on a vertical line with x being greater than 4 but less than being greater than 0, but less than 4. Alright, so now these are the instructions that will be given, but the very first thing that is important when you're interpreting it is to always make sure that you get all the information you're given on each graph. Alright, so first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to write the graphs that we're given. So the first one that we were given was or is ax squared plus bx plus c. Then the second one, it is g of x, which is equals to mx plus d. Okay, now all I need to do here first is write all the information that I'm given about f. But before I get into that, I need to understand what is happening here, right? Now, on the diagram, when I see the graph of f here, I can see that this graph, it is a concave down, or rather a Z graph. So this means now here that my value for a, right, it has to be negative, right? Or it needs to be what? It needs to be negative. All right. Okay, so what's the second part? The second part here, it is this c here. This c here, this is going to be my y-intercept, right? So my y-intercept, I know that it has to be, or it needs to be a point that has a coordinate, the x-coordinate being 0, and then the y-coordinate being an actual value, whatever value that it will be. All right, so now that's what I get when I see this equation from the parabola perspective. And then on the gradient, or on the straight line perspective, looking to the graph, I can see that the graph it is sliding down, right? As we go into the right, the y values are getting smaller. So this basically means that the gradient here, it is negative, right? By less than 0, I mean negative. And then this here, it is going to be the y-intercept as well. Now, these are the very first thing that I must always get when I see an equation, by actually looking into the interpretation. All right. Now, what is the second thing that I'm supposed to do here? Now, the second thing is to look at what we're given. Now, here we see that when it comes to f, I have point B, C, and A, right? Now, B and C are the x-intercepts. So I'm going to write that as the x-intercept, which is I have B, 4:0. I'm given that, and then C -1 is 0. So I'm given x-intercepts, and then I'm given a point. I'm given a point which is A, which is 0:16. Now this point, I can also actually treat it as my y-intercept. So let me write it as y-intercept rather. Okay. Now what about G? So looking at G, I can see that on G I have B and A. Now B being the x-intercept of G, so I'm going to write x-intercept for G is going to be B, which is 4:0, and then the y-intercept there, it is going to be A, which is 0:16. All right, now by the looks of things here, you can already see that we said this is the y-intercept, so it means basically there's a direct link between this and that, and so is here. So that also applies there. All right, so now that I'm done with my interpretation, I can actually also focus on the last part. Now, the last part that we were told here was that P and Q are 2 points in a vertical line, right, with x greater than 0 but less than 4. So this means now if I want to calculate PQ, right, PQ is a vertical line So it means its formula will be the y value at the top minus y value at the bottom, right? But then now when you look here, you can see that we don't have the actual y value there, but you can see that p is on f. So this means now instead of using an actual y value, we can write this as f of x minus, then the bottom part we can see q is on g, but then we don't have the actual value for q, so it means you can write there the y value for g of x. So it's going to be g of x like that. Now this is basically what we have here. So now we can now go into our first question and answer all the questions that we are given there, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and look into the first one. Now the first one, it says here we need to determine the equation of g. So to determine the equation of g, we have these 2 points here. So with these 2 points here, what the first thing that we're going to do here, we're going to write y equals to mx plus d, right? Now here we need to find the gradient of this graph and also the y-intercept, right? Now luckily we already have a y-intercept which is 16 right there. So therefore this means the value for d will be exactly 16. Okay, now updating this will give us y is equals to mx plus 16, and then now it means we need to find a gradient. Now to get a gradient, we're going to use those 2 points there. So we know that by a formula, a gradient it is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? So now this means now our gradient is going to be 16 minus 0 over 0 minus 4, right? And then now we can press that on your calculator. When you press this on your calculator, you should get negative 4. Therefore, y is equals to negative 4x, right? Plus 16. Now that is your equation for g. So I'm gonna write g. There is y is equals to minus 4x plus 16. All right. So now let's go ahead and look into the second question. And the second question here, it says, show that the equation of f is represented by y is equals to minus 4x squared plus 12x plus 16. All right. Okay. Now here, how do we basically find the equation of f? Now to find the equation of f, it depends on what we're given. Now in this case here, when you go over into the instructions that we were given x-intercepts here, right? And also we were given a point. Now because of that, this means now in order for us to find the equation of f, we need to start off by writing the intercept form. Now the intercept form, it is called y equals to a into x minus x1 and x minus x2, right? Now we use this formula to find the equation of a parabola if you're given x-intercepts. In this case, we are given x-intercepts. If you remember our x-intercepts, I'll write them there. It was b, which is 4, is 0, and then c, which was minus 1, is 0, right? Then now here, on these points, the first one at the top can act as x1, and then the second one here can act as x2, right? Now, this is not the only thing that you must have, right? You must also have another point that you're given, which in this case, yes, we have a point. It is 0 is to 16. Now, this point, it helps us to solve for the value for a. All right. Now, how do we then find our equation? So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to first substitute our x1 and x2. So y is going to be a into x minus, now my x1 it is 4, so I'm just going to put it like that so that I can make sure you understand, and then my x2 is going to be like that, right? And then now when I simplify that part, this gives me x minus 4, and then this gives me x plus 1. All right, then now right from here, I must first find the value for a. Now to find the value for a, I'm going to use the value or the point that I'm given right there. Now here the point that I'm given it is 0 to 16. Now this is the x value and that is the y value. So that means now from here I'm going to substitute 16 in place of y, and I'm going to say a into 0 minus 4, 0 plus 1, and then now 16 is equals to a. Now simplifying this, it gives you negative 4, and then I'm going to divide by -4, -4, and I cancel the 2, and then -4 becomes my value for a. Alright, and therefore from here, when I take this value, substitute it back into the equation where I had my a into x minus 4, x plus 1, but then now the updated one will be y equals to -4 into x minus 4, x plus 1. Then from here, I'm going to simplify this by multiplying this with that, and that, and then that's with that, and that. And then by doing that, I will get x squared minus 3x minus 4. And then from here, I'll then multiply this there, and there, and there. And then y will be minus 4x squared plus 12x plus 16, and that will be the value for f. So that is going to be how we find our value for f. Alright, so now let's go ahead and look into 6.3. 6.3 says here, determine the coordinates of the turning point. Alright, so now to find the coordinates of the turning point, all we have to do is take the equation that we have, minus 4x squared plus 12x plus 16, right? Now, when it comes to this, right, because of right now we're preparing for a trial, right, it means now you can find your turning point whichever way you want to, right? So other people, they use a derivative, right? Take a derivative equated to 0, get an x value, and then substitute it there. But other people, they still use the old way of writing it, right? So now it depends on which one you want to use. But then for me, because of now you are actually prepared for a trial, I'll always say that actually you can actually do the one that you haven't been doing, which is the derivative part. If you remember, when it comes to derivative, when you take a derivative and make it equal to 0, that gives you what? That gives you the x coordinate of the turning points. So now here, all I have to do is to first write my equation as f of x, right? Then therefore, I'll say f prime of x is going to be equals to 0, right? Because this means turning point. Okay, now what is my derivative here? So the first value, when I'm differentiating the first value right there, I'm gonna get minus 8x. When I'm differentiating the second one, I'm gonna get 12. Now differentiating the constant, I'll get 0, right? So I'll say plus 0 equals to 0. Then now this gives you minus 8x is equals to minus 12 divided by minus 8 divided by minus 8. Then now x becomes 3 over 2, right? Now this would have been the same even if you have done the other way around. So the other way around is the one that you've been doing, where you say x equals to minus b over 2a, and then with this one, x was going to be minus what is b? B, it is going to be 12 over 2, and then a is going to be minus 4, like that. And then when you press this, it should give you 3 over 2 as well, right? So it doesn't matter which one you choose, right? It's still the same thing. But then you always need to make sure that you practice this one, because this is what you're going to be using when you're also applying on cubic function. All right, so now that we have our value, therefore we need to substitute our value into our equation, our original equation, so that we can get its y value. Okay, so plus 12, 3 over 2 plus 16. All right, so now from here, pressing this in your calculator. So as you see here, by pressing this in the calculator, it gives you 25. So we're going to write our 25 there, and therefore our turning point will then be 3 over 2 is to 25, and that is how we find our turning point. Right, now I feel like here the reason why maybe even this one is like a 3 marks thingy is because you can either way here the steps are the same thing, right? So it doesn't matter which step you're using. All right, so let's go ahead and look into question 6.4. So 6.4 now, it reads as follows: for which values of x will the inverse be a function? All right, Now, in order for us to understand the values of x for which the inverse will be a function, all we have to do is we need to look at the critical values first that we had, right? So the critical value that we had was the turning point, and this turning point was 3 over 2 is to 25, right? Now, the minute you start doing an inverse, right, an inverse will change the x value and make it a y value, and then the y value making an x value, right? So now this then means now the inverse point will then be, just put a point there, it will then be 25 is to 3 over 2, right? And then your graph will be pointing into this direction, right? So if you want to visualize how it would look like, it will be like something like this, right? Like pointing the other direction, right? Pointing that side. So now the values that will make this graph a function are all the values starting from 25 and going to the left, right? So those are going to be the x values. Therefore, this then means now that the value when x is less or equals to 25 will be where you're going to be having your what? You're going to be having your function. All right, now let's go ahead and look into 6.5. 6.5 here, it says express PQ in terms of x. Now, if you remember earlier, PQ, we had spoke about PQ. If I go back there, we said that PQ was the vertical distance, which was f of x minus g of x. All right, so now it means now PQ, remember we said that it was f of x minus g of x. All right, so now all we have to do now is to write this thing in terms of x. So how do we do that? We first remove all of this so that it doesn't get in the way. So now PQ is going to be, now f of x, we know that the value for f of x, it is minus 4x squared plus 12x plus 16 minus, then now g of x was, let me just go back there, let me see where we had g of x was minus 4x plus 16. So which means now we have minus 4x plus 16. Notice that I had inserted this in brackets. So make sure that you put in these brackets because it means we're going to multiply this negative there and there. All right. Now our PQ, it is minus 4x squared plus 12x plus 16 plus 4x minus 16. And then this cancels with that. And then our PQ, it is minus 4x squared plus 16x, and that is how we write it in terms of x. All right, so now the next question here, it says determine the maximum length of PQ. All right, so now to find the maximum length of PQ, all we have to do is 6.6, take PQ, so I'm going to write PQ, then I'm going to say this is PQ of x and write it as minus 4x squared plus 16x. Now to get the maximum, remember, maximum is more or less the same, or it is exactly the same as what? As a turning point. So it means in order for me to achieve that, first thing that I'm going to do here is to calculate the x-coordinate of the turning point, right? But then now of which graph? Of the PQ graph, right? So now by doing this, this gives me derivative of that one is minus 8x, and then of that one it gives me 16, and then equate this with 0, and then I'll say minus 8x is equals to minus 16 divided by minus 8 divided by minus 8. X is going to be equals to 2. Now this is going to be the x value where I'm going to have the maximum length. Then now to get the original length, all I have to do now on PQ is to substitute x as 2 on that equation. All right, so now when I do this, I'm going to go then and press this on a calculator. Now pressing this on a calculator, as you can see here, it gives me my answer as 16 units. So that will be the maximum length for PQ. All right, so now the last question here, it goes as follows. So let me first write the number in there. So the question here, it says for which values of x will f of x be greater than g of x? All right, so now here, what are we looking for? So here we're looking for the x values, right, where the y values of x are going to be sketched above the y values of g. Now, if you're looking at this, you can see that F here, it is below because G is above. But then now after A, you can see F is above. Even though it has a turning point there, it's still above G. And then it continues up until it gets right before B here, right? Now, it means now, in order for us to find these values of X, we must wonder what is the value of A, the X coordinate of A. In this case, it is 0, if you remember earlier, or let me just underline it there. It is 0, the X value, it is 0. But then now for B, it is what? It is 4, right? So it means now everything that happened between 0 and 4, that's where our graph of F was actually above G. So this then means now our answer will be X is greater than 0 but less than 4, and that is going to be our final answer. And that's it for this video. If you like the video, please make sure that you share this with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and also hit the notification bell, as I'll be sending more videos to help you prepare for this upcoming trial. And I'm gonna see you on to the next one. Cheers.